Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And this week, I always tell you every week how I'm connected with my guests, just because I do like to encourage, whether we call it networking, being open, creating new relationships, building upon former relationships. I always like to share how I was introduced to my guest or how I know them. And so today, this week, I'm meeting my guest for the very first time virtually. You might recall a few weeks back, I had Lynn Zelak on, and Lynn shared a fabulous, very personal story about her health journey, she and her husband, and how she's doing yoga now. And she's just opening up Troop Soups, a plant based restaurant here in Northeastern Pennsylvania. So when I spoke with Lynn afterwards, she said, "You know what? You need to talk to my friend." And I said, "Okay, I'm always open to introductions." So this week, my guest is Tracy Bajadek. Tracy and I are going to talk today about her business and about her passion and life, personal journey, and how it relates to families and children and teaching them yoga. So, welcome to the show, Tracy. It's so good to have you.
Thank you so much, Janine. It's so wonderful to finally get a chance to meet you and to be here with you.
I know we had a little bit of a reschedule. I've had that a couple times, and for my listeners, I will tell you. I probably shouldn't tell you because maybe you don't notice the difference. I'm recording a little bit differently this week because my Yeti microphone is, of course, one more thing to agitate me, and I'm already pissed and perimenopausal, as I like to say. So, technology is not always helping me. Something's up with my microphone, so I'm using my phone, and hopefully everything will sound okay with the audio. But we don't need to focus on that. As long as you can hear us and you can hear the great conversation, that's what matters. So I want Tracy, I'd love for you to share. And before I hit the record button, we talked a little bit about how everything's been connected, your personal and professional journey, and where you are today. You have a business called Buds in Bloom, where you teach children yoga. But if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and your background, my listeners and I know I would really appreciate it.
Sure, I'd love to. So, yes, I am a native Pennsylvanian. I come from the Lehigh Valley, now living in a little town up here in Northeast PA called Newfoundland. I have two wonderful children, two boys, actually like borderline young adults now, who don't really even know it, but have been very instrumental in my journey. My wonderful husband and two fur babies that live with me. So I am a speech language pathologist by profession, and that is what I have. I still do. I work for early intervention in Wayne County primarily, but also a little bit in Pike. And I have been doing that for 20 plus years. Love it very much. Have been in many different arenas with that. I worked in a private practice as a staff member. I taught a little bit at the college level at East Stroudsburg University with some undergrad classes, and just most recently have been working in early intervention. So that's been probably about 15 years. This is a wonderful space. I'm sure some of your listeners will have had experience with early intervention, some maybe not. But typically, what happens is I'm called upon to go into homes and work with families and their children who are needing some support in their development in the area of speech and language. And I've done this. It's just a very lovely space to be privileged enough to work in because it gets very personal and intimate with families. I'm seeing, their struggles day to day. Um, Now I'm going to talk about how yoga started for me. And I don't know, I feel like those of us who are yogis, many will often say, I think I was a yogi before I knew I was a yogi, because we just kind of have this attitude and philosophy about life. And it was when the pandemic happened that I thought, I really need to do something for myself. I need to um, tap into something that I think was there just dormant. And at this point, like the rest of the world, I'm trying to help families and children virtually online. It was a bit of a challenge, but we muscled through, and I feel like I was serving as a support to people with whatever their needs were really at that point. Um, and I found a place where I could study yoga. So, and it was great because this was in 2020. I started the fall of 2020, and we were able to mask up, and our class was small enough that we could social distance and meet in person. So, those of you who don't know, when you're studying yoga, it's quite an extensive experience. It was a 9-month program where once a month we would meet for three days. And I did that. I graduated in 2021, in May of 2021. But during that time of getting all this wonderful, rich knowledge about, yoga and how um, I can use the skills of yoga, all through this experience, I'm like thinking to myself, this is so related to what I do. Like I'm helping people professionally as an SLP, and I'm helping myself in studying yoga. And how can I take this information and share it with the world? And at some point in the training, I was encouraged, like most students are when you're studying yoga, to think that way, to think deeply about, you have this great information and you can use it for yourself. Will it end there for you, or will you share this? And that's when I was thinking, well, and now let me just say, when I came into the studies of yoga, I kind of had the initial intention of, I work with children for a living. I'd like to do something different. But the truth, Janine, is we cannot deny what is there, right?
Mhm.
Like um, the organicness of who we are and what our skill set is and where we thrive, right? So halfway through my training, we were meeting on, I think it was a Saturday this happened, and we were having lunch, and my yoga teacher said, so I just want to let everybody know, she had a friend that she was working with, a yoga colleague that she had worked with for years and had known for years out on the West Coast, actually. This is where I did my training. That was done virtually, but she just made the announcement. So we have a friend of mine that I want to share the information. She's doing a kids yoga class, if training, if anybody's interested. And one of the things that I have learned from practicing yoga, a younger version of me would have been very impulsive about that information
Mm.
coming to me. So the version of me that is here now took that information and just let it and just sat with it, really. Like, I continued through that class. I went home that night. I was still thinking about it. I got up the next day, still thinking about it. Went to class. The next day was a Sunday, and I found myself still thinking about it. And I did. I totally approached my teacher and I said, yeah, I'm going to need that number. And she said, yeah, you are going to need that number, and it was sweet. She shared with me that, she saw in me something that maybe I wasn't as open to when I started the yoga, the 200-hour yoga training. But the point of all this is, and like I shared with you before, I really feel like my family life, my professional life, everything has just led me to this space of knowing, this pull almost of, this is really what you need to, this is how you need to share to the world.
Mm.
You need to get this out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, had you taken yoga classes for yourself before? Was this part of your routine or self-care at all throughout your life?
I had been an on and off yogi. I failed to mention, but I also was a runner in a younger version of myself. But as aging occurs, and I wasn't always the best at stretching. I kind of found myself learning that I had to stretch because I couldn't run. I was like, I want to do something. So I did start practicing yoga. Um, on and off, if I'm being fair, on and off I probably started that in my early 30s. But I wasn't a religious practicing yogi. And I should share, many people here um in Western culture kind of view yoga as a fitness experience, which it absolutely most certainly is. But those of us who've studied know that it's 1/8 of the path of yoga when you study. So I've always been a little bit on the softer side. I enjoy meditation. I enjoy all the breath work. I just enjoy the principles of the practice. And I share everything, that all of the knowledge I have with the kids when I'm teaching. But yeah, it's that's kind of the way that I've you know studied and practiced.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's funny you say about the stretching. I started running in my early-ish, I guess, 30s. And now I'm 52. I'm still running, but it looks a lot different than it did. Not that I was ever super fast. I was faster than I am now. And I wasn't real competitive, but like it's funny, I say that and I'm like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I have won a few medals because it wasn't a huge race. And of course, I loved it. I loved winning a few medals. I'm not like, oh, I didn't want it. Of course, I wanted it. But I also knew in the grand scheme of like competitiveness, especially in a larger race, that I wasn't running like 7 minute miles, 6 minute miles. I wasn't doing that. And thankfully, I like what you said earlier about this version of yourself. Well, this version of myself, and as I've gone, it doesn't matter. Like I remind myself, that we all say meet someone where they're at. Well, you have to meet yourself where you're at. And where I'm at now, I'm doing a lot more run, walk, run, but I've never been
Mm.
good about stretching, which is a problem. I'm going to have to do that before one day my body says, yeah, you're not moving anywhere. Um,
Mhm.
but for me, it is a meditative. Like I like walking, but it's not the same effect for me as running. When I run, it's definitely more meditative and thoughts come and go and they flow where I don't have the ability to ruminate like I do when I'm sitting or whatever. And for some reason, it's just a nicer process for me. I get ideas for my stand up creativity. So, and for my mental health, running is just so key. So, I want to keep doing that as long as I can. But I want to say that I have not been good about stretching. So, I've taken yoga through the years occasionally, but I think I need to at least get back to doing a little bit of floor work so that I can keep moving my body.
Yeah, yeah. I love what you're saying, and I agree 100% about that, meditative space when you're engaging in running. Um, it's so true. Or just even outdoors. I love to hike. That's one of my favorite things. And I found that I can do that. While running is not on my agenda these days, I can certainly practice yoga. I can definitely hike, which I love. And for me, that's a super meditative space. It's
Yeah.
almost, religious for me. It's so nice.
Yes. I agree with you there too. I've been saying lately, like I grew up Catholic and I don't personally practice anymore, but I do call nature like almost my church
Yeah,
because I love going to like, state parks. I'm closest to Lackawanna State Park, so I go there. Just a couple days ago, I was at Francis Slocum, which is in Luzerne County. I just learned about forest therapy, forest bathing about 3, 4 years ago. I love that concept. And
same.
I just love being out there among the trees. Like I said something the other day, and I said, I know it sounds so kind of like hippy dippy, but like it is like the warmth and the hug of the earth because there's nothing quite like it. I mean, running by cars, you've got the danger and the worry as it is, but there's just something so peaceful when I would come out of like a trail run or just a walk or a hike. It soothes my soul, and that's not even a joke. It just does. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me jump in and say, when I'm constantly thinking about my work with children and their families, like these are the things that young children are just wide open to, like the experience. But, in their minds, they're not thinking like we do about the beautiful leaf that you see that has every color, of the possibility of a tree in it, but when we can find those little things and share that, it gives them that mental space, of gratitude and just happiness. And that really is a big, big part of my kids' yoga. Just bringing to the forefront these small, everyday opportunities to, reflect. have peace, gratitude.
Yeah. And that's so great that you're doing that at an early age because, again, I'm 52, so I'm a Gen Xer. That's certainly not something we talked about when I was young or even in my 20s or 30s, like this idea of reflection and gratitude. And, it's thankfully it's talked about more now. And if they can learn that early, maybe that will help with their balance between the hustle bustle, the technology and all that, because I think we're going to need it even more. I mean, it's so needed for adults. We need it so much. We have to make a certain practice like, okay, get off the phone, go out into the woods, go to where nature is. But I want to ask you, that was a great point, but I want to learn a little bit more about teaching children.
Okay.
Your approach to it, do they even instruct you differently as far as how you teach it? And on kids, I'll freely admit I'm not someone who, although I can be goofy with my friends' kids, I don't have children. So I don't know if I'd always have the patience, although maybe I would. What's that experience like as far as how you're instructing them and what they can learn from it?
Yeah, so it's markedly different. Um, you know, I in fact, I'll start by answering your question and sharing that when I teach, so I teach kids across, all the years of childhood. And when I teach a class of kids that are younger than 5 or 6, it's usually around 6 that kids are like, okay, I don't want to be with mom or dad or grandma anymore. They want to be on their own. So I often teach classes for younger children where they can bring a caregiver and it's more of like a family experience. But when I do that, I definitely share at the very beginning, please understand that it's developmentally appropriate for your child to not want to do what we're doing. you know, like every child is unique and different. And this is where I pull in from my knowledge of my, profession as a speech therapist. I work with many children with different abilities. So I like people to understand, please don't feel that stress of performance here, because that's not what it's about at all. It's completely about comfort, freeness to be who you are, being accepted, non-competitiveness. Like the space is just there for for the kids to be. So, I feel like we're living in a world somewhat where everybody is performance based. I hate to, I don't want to make any judgments here at all, but I'm just witnessing what I'm witnessing, as a mom, as a teacher, as a yoga instructor. Like I don't know. I get kids, life is hard for them. And I just want them to have a space where they're seen, they're appreciated, they're understood, right? And it's hard as parents and caregivers to do that consistently because there's a million and one things going on in the day in everybody's household, right?
Mhm.
So I definitely share that. I say, please know, as long as the rules are this, and this comes from my teacher, if your child is safe, safety is first. And just that we're not disrupting others, if I'm sitting in butterfly or even in shavasana, which this never happens because kiddos love a chance to snuggle up and interesting, really. They love that part of the class, it's very telling about life for little ones. But anyhow, I always say, as long as they're safe, as long as they're not disrupting anyone else, please give them the space to move around, and don't, moreover, don't feel stress about that, like it's okay, it's totally okay. We know that small children, they'll weave in and out. I actually say to parents, if your child's safe and just needs to get up and move around, please continue with me, continue class, because they're going to make their way back to us, when they're feeling it. Now, when we get into classes for elementary school age kids, it's a little different because you can do a little more just instruction,
Mm.
Um, and I guess I'm talking about the asana practice, that's the poses of yoga. But once again, you're not going to see me adjusting kids. That's just not going to happen because, the way we look at children's yoga is this is their expression of a warrior one pose at age 5, and hopefully if they enjoy the practice and keep up with it, they're going to move through that, evolution of it becoming what it needs to be for them, so important, but like I said, it's so much more than just the physical practice,
Yeah.
so a lot of times, and like you said, it is different. It's different training. We're learning about the developmental stages of childhood in yoga school. We're talking about, how we can bridge philosophy of yoga, which is essentially practices of loving kindness, just getting these kids to see that organic value and all the gifts that they have inside that they can share with the world. And you had mentioned self-care. Self-care is like a big thing, and it is, and it should start early for children, just to know that they can take the time for themselves when they need it.
Yeah.
And all the tools, all the skills, the breath work is huge, all the somatic stuff, just getting them to make that mind body connection. So, I can sit in teaching a class of adults who have had life experience, and they understand, they have such a more sophisticated knowledge base about themselves and the world around them. But it gets a little challenging when you're trying to teach concepts like this to children. Challenging but really fun, and here's where the teacher, the speech therapist teacher in me gets excited, because I love to teach kids. I love to learn about them, discover their learning styles, share with their parents how they learn best. Like, you see how it's all related, Janine?
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
all
Yeah.
related like this.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, I'm sure your professional background of the being a speech pathologist has come in handy, especially working with children. It's interesting you said about like you won't adjust the kids, but I'm thinking they're probably, as far as like bendiness, they're probably much more flexible
It's a
than
game.
than adults. But I was also thinking, you say you know, adults have like their lived experience and all that, but in a way, and I don't know if you would agree, this is just what I'm thinking, like we also as adults bring our own baggage too, our own
Mhm.
preconceptions, our own judgment, our own stuff that we have a hard time sometimes setting down. Kids don't come with that.
Mm-mm, not at all, and that's exactly the thought. So we are what a lovely opportunity, and really like an honor it is for me to be able to be someone that can guide and share. You know what I mean? Like, give them that first experience. I'm going back to the walk in the woods, and seeing the pieces of nature through the lens of like, wow, look at this beauty, instead of just, stomping over it to get to the biggest rock that they can find, which is also lovely. There's a part of it, too, and I feel this way as a teacher, like in my work with families and their children. Like, I tell them all the time, you know, I'm working with kids under the age of 3, excuse me, and I will say, a lot of this is about us tuning in, right? Just following the lead of our children and tuning in, and trying to take the moment to understand what's important to them and why, because then we can send them on a path of exploration, and it's just a beautiful thing to witness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you teach, so you teach, I know you like really young ones, which and they can bring their caregiver, or as they start to get a little bit older, they can do it independently. Do you go all the way up through like teens? Because I would say they, as they grow in different ages, they're you're different headspace, right? Different attitudes, different things. Do you
Completely.
teach teenagers as well?
Completely. Yes. It is the area of my least experience, because I just, sit in a space of comfort with the little ones that I'm used to working with. But I do. I work right now. I'm also have a little part-time gig working with an after school club that's run through the Cooperage Project in Honesdale. And I will slip in some little tidbits of yoga on occasion, even simple things like taking 5, taking a few breaths, just moving our bodies a little bit, brain breaks as we call them. I did do a teen class very briefly out of Northern Light Counseling in Honesdale. That's the space where I do most of my work. Lovely space. Sorry, I hope I can plug it. It's just
Oh,
an
sure.
it's
Yes.
an absolute amazing space, with a lot of integrative wellness offerings, including yoga classes. So I did get to get to do a teen class there. And you're right, it's just it gets closer to what we in our minds have of a yoga class, like an adult class. You know, you can get a little more into the meditation with as kids get older, you know, and things like that. So I mean, there's always something to be done, though, truthfully. Object meditations for little kids can be a very sweet space, you know, where you're giving them something to just focus attention on, build concentration. Um, and again, you know, let's see, I graduated kids yoga training in 2022. So it hasn't been super long that I've been sharing yoga with kiddos, but I'm constantly overwhelmed at how open to this children are. That's just all I can say. They're open and available, you know, and they have so much, like you said, just raw ability to grasp on and, you know, eager to learn.
Yeah. Now, so your business is Buds in Bloom. Do you have a space, or do you travel to other spaces and do your classes and workshops out in the community?
Kind of what I do. I don't have my own brick and mortar space, but as mentioned, I had started, well, I actually started teaching yoga classes at Alternative Cure, which is in my hometown. It's um, a small, lovely yoga studio, but due to my work schedule and geography, because I'm mostly out toward the Honesdale, Waymart area, and it's more populated, you know, I was curious. I was like, let me check out, you know, what happens if I teach in this location. So that is where I really got things going with teaching kids, and it was there. I mean, I always knew, Janine, I always think I knew that I wanted to have some kind of a business for myself. I don't know if you hear that a lot from small business owners,
Mhm.
but I just always felt it. I just didn't know what it looked like. Is that going to be a, you know, speech therapy service? Is it going to be, I don't know. I'm very creative and I like to do art. Is it going to be a painting class? You know, I didn't know what it was going to be, but I think that yoga has taught me to be very patient and really just to be more aware, you know, of things occurring around me, timing, and you know, the more we can slow down to observe and understand things around us and what's happening, the easier it is to make decisions. So, you know, in working with Claudia at Northern Light, you know, offered her space to me to teach. She was probably the first person I told that I was going to do
Mhm.
my own business, and super great support from her. So yeah, I teach workshops out of Northern Light right now. What else am I doing? Oh, I just got my first gig for a preschool. I really would
Nice.
love to be able to get more into that kind of setting. And I haven't spoken of this yet, but I do that. So, like in early intervention, I will be in a home-based setting, or because a lot of parents are both working and their children are in daycare and preschool settings, I will also go there. So for many years, you know, I've been there to see Jake, but I'm really interacting with an entire classroom because, you know, everyone's curious and wants to see what's going on. And I just feel like it's a direction I want to take this work. I really want to do this for the children, but also equally as important is for the staff, you know, because
Yeah.
working, man, it's a tough thing to see, you know, the demands on our childcare workers in the world today. Because listen, when you're working with small kids, everybody has a need and everybody's need is immediate. So there's only so much, there's only so much, you know, that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. It's true. And I see this service as great for the children, right? But also great to offer the staff that moment to just listen, participate, let me facilitate, sit with your kids, laugh, enjoy them, and just, you know, let me be in charge for a little bit. Let me give you an hour of time to kind of take the breath and just, you know, giggle with the kids because it's so, Janine, it's so important. So
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. That's kind of the premise, excuse me, behind like the laughter yoga that I do is like I say, we worry about recharging our phones, but what are we doing for ourselves? And I mean, we're aware, but at the same time, we expect ourselves to keep delivering, whether we're on empty or not. And laughter can provide, a little bit of a boost to the brain, to our blood flow, all that stuff. And I know the yoga you're doing, absolutely fabulous. It is so good for us to take that time, and the breath work and all that's wonderful. Would you say, is this the type of thing that could help certain kinds of, about kids on the spectrum or kids with any kind of abilities, that maybe this would help them, maybe that some other activities wouldn't, or like this would be easier for them? Is there anything that you know about that kind of space for, kids with certain needs?
I can share this. I have worked with children with all kinds of needs and ability and children with different abilities. I can also share that there is specific training in the world of yoga for working with kids, working trauma informed environments, children with autism, children with other developmental disabilities. I have not taken those, if I'm being honest. But I work with a lot of children. I feel very equipped to handle, pretty much any kiddo that I'm going to come across, or I know how to reach out for assistance if I need it. But as far as yoga goes, I mean, I'm a yogi. Everybody needs, I believe everybody needs some element of yoga. And I think it's just then, that's why we have these trainings so that the instructors have the tools themselves for how to handle certain behaviors and situations and things like that. Yeah, I think it's great for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think, in teaching yoga, if you talk to any other kids yoga teachers, they'd probably say the same thing. We're like, coming in with a plan. We have our little objective and our order of events of what we want to do for a class, but a lot of times, you know that takes a hard left pretty early in the class. And that's where that flexibility comes in. Like, you've got to measure the energy level of the class. You've got to be able to, like I tell my families in EI, if your child is like doing something that you don't understand, take a minute and pay attention to it, because there's something about it that's interesting to them. And I feel like when I'm teaching kids yoga classes, sometimes someone will, like, something will be so well received that I say, we're just going to keep doing this. We're just going to switch it up a little bit. The energy's good. Everyone's having fun. And, I think that's, as a teacher, if I had a class filled with, well, every class is filled with children with different learning styles and different abilities. So I guess that, it's just up to the instructor to really tune in and see what the needs are of the class, and then just move in that direction. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's benefit for everybody. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that. I mean, I've always found it to be a gentle practice overall that is always very welcoming to everyone. I mean, most instructors are always saying, if you can't, if this isn't comfortable, do this, or modify for your own comfort. Unfortunately, I only had one bad, excuse me, bad experience years and years ago with someone leading hot yoga in a militant style. It was a male teacher, and I was like, huh. I'm sure I guess there's a place for that, but
Yeah.
not from all the other yogas that I had been to, where it's always been so gentle and so do at your own pace. Whereas this was being led like, you can bend farther, you can, and I was like, huh, well, this is a different approach. But
Yeah.
otherwise, yoga is very kind and accommodating.
It is, and it should be. It really should be, because we like to feel that yoga is for every body, body, body. Like, we want everybody there, and we want to, support them when they feel the calling to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, as we start to wrap up here, I will definitely include a link to, now, do you have a website, or should people check you out on Facebook for Buds in Bloom?
They're gonna have to check me out on socials. I'm still working on the website. It's talking about like where this business is taking me, I have to honestly tell you, I don't know. I'm just following it day by day. And everything that happens is great. And I'm just, if I can reach someone and help someone, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So, you know.
I love that because I think so many of us truly are so clinched and so about what we need to be doing or where we're supposed to be going. And there's something very relaxed but yet healthy about your approach so that you follow and it will happen and it'll come naturally. So good for you. No, honestly, that's a good approach to take, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
It's been years. It's been years of arriving here to that reality, because listen, we're all human, right? And it's the human experience, and it's taken time for me to settle there, like when I said about my own children, like I've raised two boys, and who I am now is different than who I was when I was raising them. So life is an experience, and all we're doing is taking little bits of information from the experience for the greater good, right?
Yeah. Wow. I think I needed to hear that today. Thank you. Now I'm
Oh,
already feeling like I'm feeling calmer. So thank you.
oh, that makes my day. You've made my day. Now let's let the eclipse happen.
Yes, we're recording this on the day of the eclipse. And I said, I was teasing my friend who texted earlier. She's asking me where she can get glasses. And I'm like, oh, did you just hear about the eclipse today? And I go, yes, I'm being a smartass. I'm like, it's been everywhere. And I don't know. Now, personally, I know this is going to air after that. Is this something that you're excited about? Because full transparency, I'm not super jazzed about it. Like I don't, but I mean, maybe, a lot of people are, and that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly cool science, like, right? Like the science people are super into it, and the religious people have fears, I believe, about it. Certain religions. For me, if I'm speaking my truth, this is bigger than me, right? This is happening no matter what. So, um, I haven't been super present with the experience of the eclipse. Maybe it's just because there's been a lot going on the last couple weeks, but um, I'll probably put the TV on and tune in and see what it's all about. But yeah, I don't know. That's the
Yeah.
best I can give you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, I was just curious because I'm like, it's just you hear about it like it's so much. To go back to how I said you definitely have helped me calm. I should know better. I feel like I should know better, but at the same time, I need to also be kind to myself and not say things like that because it is what it is. But like,
Yeah.
there's so much noise, and you know this in the world, and so much, social media. And I'm on it for my business. I do some work for other businesses, so you're always like, there's so much noise that it gets to be like very frenetic at times. And I need to learn to like remind myself, I should say, to like calm. But I've been hearing so much about the eclipse, and I watched the news last night, and I was just like, I had not heard this term, the path of totality, I think it's called.
Mm,
And I go, what the heck is that? I didn't even know what it was, but I'm like, boy, that sounds like an apocalyptic movie, the path of totality.
right. Right.
I don't know. Is Spielberg directing that? What is that? I don't even
Oh,
know that term.
I agree with you though. Like the social media piece is a challenge. Like for me, in trying to start a new business, like it's a necessity, right? This is
Mm,
how people are connecting, and
yes.
it needs to happen. But I too struggle with balance with that, because all right, so you might even understand this, like the artistic part of me enjoys it. I love Canva. How fun, right? Like I want to sit for an hour and create these lovely promos because they're so much fun to do. It scratches my artistic itch, you know? But the truth is, it does pull me away from what I love most. So I don't know. Whenever somebody comes up with the right equation for how to balance and manage that, I'll be buying that book for sure. But you're right. We have to give ourselves grace. It's you know at the end of the day, if we can cite some things that made us feel a higher purpose than ourselves, I think we're winning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can't, I mean, we simply can't do it all, but we make the mistake a lot of times, especially women, myself included, that we want to do it all. And it's like, okay, just breathe
Yeah,
and do one thing at a time because that's all we can do, especially doing well. Just do one thing at a time.
I agree,
Yeah, yeah,
100%. And I love
yeah,
what you're doing here. I love that, however it happened, Lynn connected you to me. I'm just so grateful for that. I love her. I adore Lynn. She's a wonderful person. And that's what life's about, surrounding yourself with people that lift you up, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, 100%. We need that. I mean, especially with the noise. It's like just block that out and just do, like you said, do what you can. That's
Hmm.
good for humanity and other like people, like-minded people. It's a great thing. Yeah, we can accomplish that. So, I want to thank you so much. I will definitely put in the show notes Buds in Bloom, and I will mention also. You mentioned Northern Light, I believe, in Honesdale.
Yeah, that's where I do my workshops. I try to have two a month. Um, and special events too. Like we've been doing some cool things at Northern Light, just collaborating with local businesses in Honesdale. We have, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but I will. We have a Mother's Day collaboration that we're working on right now, which is going to include some kids and mom yoga, massages, lots of self-care, just some wonderful things. So people can definitely check that out. um the philosophy at Northern Light is very much about wellness and self-care, and just using different modalities to reach that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic. Yeah. So again, I want to thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
me today. This has been a fabulous conversation. And like I said, you truly have kind of helped me calm a little bit. And this whole conversation, and it's funny, you keep saying the word funny. I don't know if it's funny, ironic, whatever, but a lot of times anymore, if my mood is heightened or I'm stressed, every time I do something like take a walk, go outside, nature, connection, every time there have been many times, and I'll again, I hate to say it, but it's the truth. If I'm having a rough morning, but I have a podcast scheduled, and I always feel better after the conversation because it's
Oh,
connecting with a person who has something wonderful to say that I'm excited to share with my listeners, and it makes me feel better. So it's always good.
and that's a sign pointing to yes, 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 keep doing it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm so great to keep, and I'm thankful to Lynn for making the introduction. And so to all my listeners, I will say again, keep in mind anytime you think of someone and you say, I know a great woman who should be on this episode, please feel free always to reach out to me. Janine Luby, I'm on LinkedIn, Funny Wine Girl Janine on Instagram, Facebook. Just send me a message and we can connect, and I'd be happy because my goal is to highlight women, but also to share your stories, share information so that listeners can gain insight, inspiration. I've had many people tell me how they've been inspired by the women who've been on my podcast, and they've learned a lot too. So I'm grateful for that. So again, thank you so much, Tracy. And to my listeners, check out the show notes where I will have more information about where Tracy's doing her workshops and how you can reach her. And just keep tuning in every week. I'm so happy to be able to bring you a different fabulous woman who shares each week. And as I always say, I appreciate you so much from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.